Bye. I guess the sudden deathly hush means it's time to start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chris Zarriger, Director of Schools North East. It's my pleasure and privilege to bid you all a very warm welcome to the third Schools North East Annual Academies Conference. Today is specifically about supporting Academy and MAT leaders, CEOs, CFOs, heads, chairs, everyone who does such a tremendous job of ensuring that young people in the North East have the opportunity for a bright and prosperous future. I'm delighted to welcome nearly 300 Academy leaders from every corner of the North East, from every phase, type and almost every trust in the region. Welcome to you all. And as I've stressed to all of our guests from outside of the region today, as this is mainly for Academy leaders, this is actually one of our smaller events. I was recently copied into an email chain from outside the region when someone was being congratulated for the difficult accomplishment of bringing nearly 110 head teachers together in one place, which provoked somewhat of a wry smile from our events team, Sam and Rose, to whom 110 school leaders is more of an informal coffee meet for friends than an event. And it was great that last term alone we had over 1,100 North East school leaders through our events programme. So welcome to everybody. I'll quickly run through some of the housekeeping before we start properly. If you need assistance for any reason, please report a registration or grab one of the Schools North East team. There aren't any fire drills planned, so if the alarm goes off, follow me. The exit signs for the fire are behind you. Please assemble on the pitch. And if you do, I'm sure we'll have more professionals on the pitch than at any time in Newcastle's recent history. And I say that as a Newcastle United fan, so I don't have any axes to grind apart from that one. Thank you to the Sunderland fans in the front row. Our Twitter handle is @SchoolsNE, and the hashtag is Academies 2020, so please feel free to tweet throughout the day. We're actually doing something called live streaming today as well. I've no idea what it is, but I think it means it's going to go up on the internet thing. The Wi-Fi is behind me. It's NUFC, and I won't read the password out. I think they could have come up with something better than that, but never mind. The programme and the session outlines are in your conference bag, so please have a good look through those. I think we've got an excellent programme today with some really good speakers. The programme's on 2 floors as usual. This one is where the main plenaries will be. And if you get a chance, please come and visit us at the Schools North East networking point to learn a bit more about some of our core programmes like Ed North and especially Connect Ed, our new virtual community. There's already nearly 1,000 North East leaders on that, looking at things like teaching and learning, Ofsted support, school business management, and a host of other things. I'd very quickly like to say thank you as well, not just to our events team who've done a fabulous job of pulling this together as ever, but to everybody who's made the day possible. So I'd like to thank especially all of the delegates for taking time out of extremely busy and increasingly pressured schedules. It's harder and harder to get out of school, I know that, so thank you very much for coming here today to connect with your colleagues and the speakers. Secondly, if I can thank the speakers, we have a fantastic range with a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience, and again, they've generously given up their time to be here today. For those of you who have attended before, today's a mix of the practical and the strategic, the day-to-day and the big picture. For the practical support, we normally go mainly to North East school leaders because we have enormous and outstanding expertise within the region. And this year, at popular request, we've also gone a bit further afield to hear from and share with colleagues from across the country. In terms of the big picture, we're delighted to be joined by Emma Ing, Ofsted's Regional Director for the North East, Yorkshire and Humber, Catherine Cowell, the Regional Schools Commissioner for the North, and Leora Crudder, CEO of the Confederation of School Trusts, and not to mention our unexpected guest, who only confirmed last Thursday afternoon that he would be attending, the Secretary of State for Education, the Right Honourable Gavin Williamson. I'd also like to give a big thank you as ever to our sponsors. As I try to explain to those who aren't from the region, Schools North East is a small independent charity. We're entirely self-funding, we're completely independent and answer only to our member schools. So the support of our exhibitors and our sponsors is absolutely vital in helping us to support our schools as they deserve. So before we go any further, in particular I'd like to thank our main sponsor, SOS Group, and invite their Managing Director, John Behan, onto the stage to say a few words before we begin. So please give John a warm welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Schools North East Academy Conference 2020. It's a great honour and privilege to be here. First of all, to be here working with Schools North East, but also to be afforded the opportunity of delivering the welcome note to you, the delegates and guests of the day. Welcome to one and all. My name is John Behan. I'm the Managing Director of the SOS Group. SOS Group are delighted to be here today and are equally delighted to be working with Schools North East. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the SOS Group and the products and services we supply. SOS Group, established in 2002, is a technology company. We are one of, if not the largest, truly independent companies in our sector left in the North East. As a company, all of our revenues and profits are reinvested back into the North East economy and community. We employ North East staff. Your current students are potentially our future colleagues. As School North East vision statement points out, our region is vibrant, self-reliant and outward-looking, featuring a dynamic economy, healthy environment and distinctive culture. Over a trading period of 18 years, we've seen this very clearly and in fact have felt the benefit as we have built our business. In that period of time, we've put back approximately £250,000 into our community through a variety of good causes. As a company, we don't just pay lip service, we actually do what we say we do. For 18 years, SOS Group have been supplying class-leading copiers, printers and scanning devices across the region and in fact across the country. We support and maintain all of the products we sell with our own manufacturer-trained team of skilled engineers. We supply a class-leading range of software solutions to assist and improve with almost every office function. Some of these include paper cut, power retrieve and auto store. We are extremely mindful and take great care in considering the products we offer, and in particular the hardware devices and their credentials. As a minimum, we consider the following. Do they have strong green credentials? Right now, Sir David Attenborough is telling us we are at the pinnacle of a climate crisis and we must act now. We are all duty bound to play our part and we are no exception. Does the product offer value for money? Is the product reliable? Is it simple to use? For the last 5 years, SOS Group has sold telecoms and their associated services, Lions, Broadbands and SIP trunks. We offer hosted telephony. We supply premise-based telephony. Is your telephone system 2025 compliant? We supply mobile phones. Within the telecom sector, and considering the current world of litigation and GDPR, one of the topics of discussion that regularly crops up is data protection and child safeguarding concerns. We frequently talk to schools where staff use their personal mobile phones when on trips with the children and are the point of contact for both parents and the school. In the event of the phone getting lost or stolen, this could represent a GDPR breach. We see iPads being used to take photos on trips. Again, what happens if these devices are lost or stolen? How would an Ofsted audit see this? As a failure? Mobile Device Management Software, or MDM, could solve this problem. On a positive note, you don't need to replace your devices. MDM can be added to most current devices and contracts. For almost 4 years, and alongside our telecoms, SOS Group have been offering a professional independent ITC service. Being vendor independent means we can offer the best possible service to you without the pressure to sell additional products or services. You get the service that is best suited for your needs, delivered by consultants with vast experience in this field. And finally, our latest offering. Over the past 12 months, SOS Group has added a new product range to our portfolio, specialist furniture. iHeat, our heated desks. Heat the person, not the space. We have case studies and evidence that can demonstrate achieving up to 80% savings in energy consumption and costs. iRise, our multifunctioning desks. iLab, our specialist lab desks. These allow us to incorporate water, gas and electricity all in one space. These are not normally good friends. 100% recycled desks made from landfill and other recovered plastics. Sit stand and SEN desks. Our IDES range can help to improve security. They are robust and, as with all of the products, come with guarantees of up to 25 years. And with all of these products, we can mix and match the technology and the solution. So for example, you could have a heated iRise multifunctional desk. Fully designed and manufactured in the UK, our desk solutions can be built to your exact requirements. SOS Group also offer a diverse range of office desks, storage solutions, open access and reception furniture, including flexible solutions that allow for sit-stand, disabled users, open access spaces and much more. Some summary. We're exhibiting here today. We're in stand 1. Please come and have a chat. We know time is tight today, so we would be delighted to arrange a visit to see you at your convenience. If you have any questions regarding your current technology needs, we believe we have the skill, the knowledge and the experience to answer them. As an ethical, local and professional organisation, we would believe we would be a worthwhile partner and supplier to your Academy or Trust. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a fantastic day and we hope to see you on stand 1.
Thank you very much, John, and for your support. Now, the Secretary of State's last-minute confirmation of attendance means, unfortunately, that the time for my welcome has been greatly reduced. Although I can't guarantee it'll feel like that. But I would like to take a few minutes just to set the scene for his keynote address and also the wider Schools North East work that our event today sits within. As you've probably heard me say far too often now, we live in interesting times. We begin the new year with a new government, out with the old, in with the new, and a very new House of Commons indeed. A brave new post-Brexit environment, a new Ofsted framework, a new ish, and a new message from the government: the North is now important. And I must admit to mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, it's great to see a renewed focus on the North. How that's defined, we'll have to wait and see. But also a strong feeling of the North, especially the North East, has always been important. And why has it taken so long for parties of all stripes to finally recognise that? I think you'll all remember the advert, "The future's bright, the future's orange." Well, the future's bright, the future's mauve, with a question mark. I'm born and bred in the North East, and I've lived here for most of my life. And when I were a lad, the North East was red, with some tiny blue bits at the far edges. And now that I'm nearly 30, with a large chunk of the region's MPs blue, it's turned a weird purple, mauvey type of colour. But hopefully it's also a time of tremendous opportunity for the region. If the Conservatives are serious about holding on to the red wall seats, then they must invest significant time, money and deep thought into understanding the needs of the North East better than ever before. If Labour is serious about recapturing their former strongholds, then they also have to think carefully and deeply about their policies and the impact that they hope to have if they want to convince people to vote for them again. In short, everyone now has skin in the game in this region in a way that arguably they didn't in the past. So with this potential new time of opportunity, Schools North East is delighted to welcome the Secretary of State for Education here today, as it gives him a perfect opportunity not only to speak to us, but also to hear some of the key messages that need to be absorbed by those who formulate policy affecting our region's schools, and especially at a time when London-centric views of education still predominate. Our recently published Manifesto for North East Education neatly sums up those key messages, all of which support each other and aim to promote policy that will liberate our schools and transform education, not just in our region, but beyond. They also form the outline of what I hope will be much longer, more detailed conversations with the Department for Education and the Secretary of State going forward. Firstly, and possibly most importantly, there is an absolute need to recognise the regional context. Educational policy that supports outcomes for the North East's pupils must take into account the context in which it's implemented. In the North East, our biggest challenge is the impact of long-term deprivation on education, whether deprived children or the non-deprived children in the region as well. An education policy that considers this impact will improve outcomes and aspirations, helping to break the cycle of disadvantage. These contextual challenges are complex and not just about long-term deprivation, serious though that is. All parties must embed the principle that areas of long-term deprivation need detailed consideration to avoid the formulation of ineffective, one-size-fits-all policies or fads. We must promote a positive narrative around North East education. We must not forget the many successes of our schools and avoid fixating on failure. Whilst we cannot be naive about the challenges they face, we must rightly celebrate the hard work, professionalism and expertise of our teachers. North East schools face many difficult challenges and yet have maintained a high quality of education. A poor understanding of their context has led to an unduly negative narrative around North East education, with a number of unintended consequences, not least its impact on the retention of hard-working, dedicated teachers. There is constant talk of a north-south divide in educational standards. The ever-helpful Michael Wilshaw was at it again in the weekend in the Times, talking about secondary failures in the North East, just as he did when he himself began the North-South myth in 2016. There's an interesting paper doing the rounds by Professor Michael Jopling, formerly of Northumbria, around the whole myth of the North-South divide in education. But as FFT Data Lab, Durham University, Bristol University, Wolverhampton University and many others can clearly show, when the contextual data is examined, there is no north-south divide. When the impact of long-term disadvantage on our students' outcomes is taken into account, this region performs just as well as London in how effectively our schools educate our children and the progress they achieve. But that's not an excuse. We've said it before and we'll say it again. However, that isn't to say it is good enough or that we are leading the way, but that all parties, all policymakers must sign up to promoting a positive, accurate narrative that supports our schools, acknowledges the challenges they face and encourages teachers to remain in and join the profession. We must depoliticise education. As long as it is treated as a political football, policy will fail to address the needs of our schools. This includes honesty, where failures as well as successes are acknowledged, objectivity, with an open mind to different solutions that are divorced from personal bias. Policy must be evidence-based, and the voice of the teaching profession must be front and centre in this. Practitioner experience cannot be sidelined, with wider consultation at the chalk face needed. All policy should be able to show a clear evidence base supporting it, a robust implementation plan, including assessment criteria linked to clear goals and measurable objectives. There should be a commitment that all data, evidence and results, the good, the bad and the ugly, should be published so all can learn from it. We need to take a long-term view of education. Constant changes to policy and practice serve only to frustrate school leaders, drive good people from the profession and prevent proper assessment of whether policies are succeeding. This stability is essential to ensure North East schools can deal with our region's challenges. Greater support for early years is crucial for tackling the disadvantage gap in attainment. Children from socially disadvantaged groups are about 11 months behind their peers by the time they start school, and narrowing the gap as early as possible is essential. This focus must be on quality teaching and learning, coupled with parenting skills, and not just providing free, convenient childcare to encourage parents into work. We desperately need a joined-up approach from Cabinet to chalk face. All policy changes must be considered in light of all education policies and other initiatives, and across all departments, including Ofsted. Schools are increasingly expected to take on additional responsibilities, such as mental health, emotional well-being, and in many cases taking on a parental role. But schools are not an island, and policymakers must recognise schools alone cannot be the answer to all social issues. We need to support the North East teaching profession at every level. Quality teaching and school leadership is vital, and policy must encourage the best school leaders to aspire to lead in our most disadvantaged schools, rather than make it too high risk for them to go in there. We must ensure that all pupils can access an appropriate curriculum. Not all schools and pupils can access the same opportunities. Adequate funding is needed to ensure that all of our region's schools can provide a minimum curriculum guarantee to all pupils, allowing them to access the same educational experiences as their more advantaged students, raise aspirations and build cultural capital. And finally, targeted support for those with the greatest needs. The North East has the highest percentage of pupils with special educational needs and disabilities in the country. And considering the higher levels of mental health issues in the North East, it is essential that the government properly supports the region's schools and promotes better integrated health and education services. So in conclusion, I would hope that the Secretary of State, on returning to Westminster, will consider and reflect on those key messages of context, evidence and targeted support, and that any policy he formulates going forward is seen through the lenses of those messages. More than anything, though, I would hope that going forward he at least robustly challenges the prevailing negative narrative about North East schools, their teachers and their students, that he takes away the positive messages that under the new Ofsted framework to date, a higher percentage of North East schools have seen their gradings increase than any other area, with fewer being downgraded than any other area, that we have 54 teaching schools, 3 research schools, and that last year alone 3,500 colleagues came together through Schools North East to share, develop, learn, improve and help each other. And most of all, that he joins us in spreading the word that our primaries are great and so are our secondaries, that despite their context, our secondaries are as good as London's, and that our teachers are hard-working, dedicated professionals committed to delivering the highest standard of education possible to their students. So hopefully, having set the scene for today, it is now my great pleasure to be able to introduce our first keynote speaker of the day, the Secretary of State for Education, the Right Honourable Gavin Williamson, CBE. Gavin is almost, very almost, a local lad, kind of a northerner, having been born in Scarborough and educated in a Northern Comprehensive School. He was elected Conservative MP for South Staffordshire in May 2010 and was appointed Secretary of State for Education on the 24th of July 2019. So please give a very warm North East welcome to the Right Honourable Gavin Williamson.
Chris, thank you ever so much for that kind introduction, and also for truncating your speech in order to make time for me. Your office has kindly sent me on your full speech you were going to make, which I believe went on for 3 hours 52 minutes. So I look forward to reading that on my way back down to Wolverhampton back home. So thank you, and thank you for everything that every single one of you do in terms of delivering the inspirational and the brilliant education that we all want for every single child here in the North East. And your commitment, your dedication, the time that you take, not just in the school day, but outside of that, is a real testament to the real passion that not just yourself, but so many people have right across the North East and right across the country for delivering for our children. And it is great to be back here in the North East. Now, I've been in the North East quite a lot over the last few months. It's mainly involved in walking up and down streets, knocking on doors, delivering leaflets, and being rained on a lot. So it is incredibly delightful to actually be in a building and having a roof over my head when I'm in the North East. Because every election has a defining moment. And what defined December's election happened right here in the North East, in Blythe Valley, in Redcar, in Bishop Auckland, in Northwest Durham, and so many other places. What happened here has set the agenda for the next 5 years. I hope that no one in this room will be in any doubt about the importance of this area is to our vision for what this country can achieve and what it can become. The North East is such a vital, vibrant area. It's absolutely bursting with talent, with enterprise, with innovation. Over the years, it has constantly adapted to change, reinventing itself, regenerating itself. The reason it is able to do this, the reason this area is so special, is quite simply its people. The human potential here is truly, truly enormous. I could pick any number of characters from history to show the area's amazing resourcefulness, but one of my favourites is William Armstrong. Born here in 1810, a solicitor by trade, he had one of those restless, inquiring minds that never stop asking, what happens if you do this? One day, while he was fishing on the River Dee, he came up with a design for a rotary engine powered by water. This led him to design a piston, which in turn led him to designing a hydraulic crane. And not content to stop there, he designed a field gun that was infinitely superior to anything that the British Army had. He even anticipated the rise of solar power and hydroelectricity and the demise of coal. If Armstrong shows us anything, it is that given the right environment, anyone can change the world and go as far as their talents and their imagination will take them. And that is truly a challenge for us today. How do we find the future Armstrongs of tomorrow? This government has an ambitious and challenging agenda to make changes that are going to transform the lives and prospects of a generation. Changes to the NHS, changes to the services that we all depend on, to our industries, to our communities, and of course, most importantly, to our schools. Tomorrow is a historic day. Tomorrow we will leave the European Union and become a wholly independent nation again. As we look to take full advantage of all the new freedoms this will bring and our new place in the world, it's paramount that every corner of this country feels the benefits. And what better place to start than in our schools? For some areas, there are going to be greater challenges. Some areas we recognise that we will have to do more. You rightly pointed out, Chris, some of the challenges that schools in the North East face. And I would like to make one thing absolutely clear at this point. I have exactly the same ambition for every child in this country, whatever start they have in life and wherever they come from. And I believe that everyone in this room shares that same ambition for every single child. I expect and want them to do just as well at school. I want them to have the same chances to go to university or landing that great job as every child does, up and down the country, north or south, in the Midlands, east or west. I know many of you go that extra mile to make sure that every child, every young person can make the most of their potential, whatever their personal circumstances. So again, before I go further, can I just say thank you once more? I know that you face challenges, but I also know that you are as committed as I am to making sure that nothing stops these children from making the most of their potential and seizing every opportunity that comes their way. I'm going to look at what we're doing to help you tackle some of the issues we face shortly. But first, I'd like to mention how impressed I am at the resourcefulness and enterprise of the school community here. It's important that while we recognise there are challenges ahead, we must equally celebrate so much that has been done and the success that has been had. 12 years after a group of head teachers first got together to create Schools North East, it is still unbelievably the only UK regional network of schools. I know that academies are a vital part of our incredibly diverse education landscape. Time and again, I see the enormous benefits trusts bring to improving schools by coming together, by streamlining teacher workloads and by helping more teachers do what they do best, and that is teach. Over the past 10 years, we have seen a transformation in the education system in our country. We have seen children outperforming their peers in international comparisons. We've seen more children being taught in schools that are good or outstanding. We've seen the most significant reforms to our post-16 education in a generation. There is hardly an area or an age group that has not benefited from these reforms. In that time, we've seen 13 new schools built in the North East. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, the huge amount of work that goes into opening a new school, the hopes and the dreams that lie behind every single one of them. But also the enormous work that goes in every single day to making sure that every school, over 1,000 of them here in the North East, continues to go from strength to strength, delivering for every single child in that school. I know how incredibly busy you are. And I know that in order for you to succeed, my department needs to support you in what you do. We have been looking more and more at how we can support schools, not just here but all over the country, to improve the educational prospects for all young people, wherever they're from. I don't want to see a United Kingdom dominated by the South East. I want to see a UK that is a tapestry of talent, a UK that is so diverse and versatile that everything you want in life is achievable in the place that you call home. Far too often people think that they can only succeed and achieve what they want by going to London. I want people to realise that their true potential can be unleashed, whether it is here in the North East, Whether it is in the West Midlands, the North West, Yorkshire, the South West, we have the opportunity to deliver for them wherever their home is. But we're especially keen to target areas where there are complex social issues to be taken into account. I don't underestimate how challenging they are, and I know we're not going to solve them overnight. But we've already made a great start. The North East is receiving an extra £72 million for schools this year. This represents an increase of 3.9% per pupil, which takes total funding for the region to £1.6 billion. In 2018, we launched Opportunity North East. This £24 million programme is part of our Northern Powerhouse strategy and builds on other successful approaches that are already in place to boost prosperity in the north of England. Since its launch in 2018, Opportunity North East has brought together an expert task force of school and college leaders, businesses, local authorities, universities and local enterprise partnerships. It has put in place a package of measures to unlock the potential of key secondary schools in the region through the One Vision School Improvement Programme. One Vision is one of those brilliant examples of what can be achieved when people put their heads together and collaborate. And I'd like to pay tribute here to the fantastic board, chaired by my colleague, Lord Agnew, and so many members of it who have done so much to drive this programme forward. There are 28 One Vision schools, including Excelsior Academy and Kenton School here in Newcastle, as well as the Berwick Academy in Northumberland and Rye Hills Academy in the south of the region. I really should actually name the full 28, but you'll probably actually want to move on in your agenda at some point. All 28 schools are working with high-performing institutions and experts across the region. They've been putting in place bespoke improvement plans which have been drawn up after a thorough analysis of what their needs are. Not taking a one-size-fits-all approach, but looking at what the needs are for that school and trying to fit something that helps that team deliver the improvement that they all want to see. I want to make it clear that I will be giving every bit of support I can into making sure that we develop this programme and do everything we can to support its growing success. If you want to know more broadly how we're going to deliver on our ambitions to improve educational outcomes for young people here, we're today publishing our delivery plan for Opportunity North East, and I would really encourage every one of you to take the opportunity to have a look at it. This is something we're all working together on to deliver more for the North East and all pupils here. As well as Opportunity North East, we're looking at ways of backing a number of projects at a more local level to make sure pupils continue to achieve well and are supported when they move from primary to secondary school. All of these projects will be rigorously evaluated so that we know what works and can share that more widely. Chris, you mentioned the point about being honest. We recognise that. There is no point in continuing to do things that do not work. What we do has to be evidence-based. If it is not producing results, we have to recognise that and we have to move on and try something else. Where we see good practice, whether it is here in the North East or whether it is anywhere else around the country, we should not be too proud to borrow that idea and to implement it in our schools in the North East and right across the country. I know from conversations in many schools, one of the biggest problems school leaders face, particularly here in the North East, is that they do not have enough teachers, especially in certain subjects. To address this, we're rolling out new and improved training and professional development for teachers right across the country. I'm sure you've read about our recruitment and retention strategy. This is about the aim to transform the profession by making sure that teachers have the same kind of quality training you would find in other professions. I don't want people to think that their journey in terms of becoming a teacher ends at the moment they finish their B.Ed or their PGCE. Their learning about being a teacher is something that continues all the way through their professional development and their career. New teachers will be supported throughout their first 2 years by our new early career framework, which will give them the start that they need to become settled into their new work. Schools in the North East are getting preferential treatment with this. They can opt into a fully funded 2-year package of structured training and support from September this year, a year ahead of schools in other parts of the country. We'll also be offering retention incentives for those who are about to start a career teaching maths and physics in the North East. This is to bolster teacher numbers for these key subjects. But if that is how we are preparing to support the area's teachers, what are we doing to support your students? I know that too many young people in the North East are missing out on the skills they need for a fulfilling career or to continue their studies at a higher level. This is not just a tragic waste of potential on a personal level, but it is also a tragic waste for our country. For this reason, the North East will be among the first areas to offer T-levels. These new qualifications are going to transform education and work prospects for those who do not wish to go down the A-level path. Durham Sixth Form Centre, Gateshead College, New College Durham and St Thomas More Catholic School are all going to be blazing a trail for the rest of the country to follow. And we want to build on this as we roll them out, making sure that young people have real alternatives and different choices. Opportunity North East is also supporting young people to progress to higher education by expanding the North East Collaborative Outreach Programme. This is aimed at young people who have the potential to progress to higher education, but who come from backgrounds where there have traditionally been low application rates. I know that when Lord Agnew visited last October, he was particularly taken with the Elephant Group, which works with local schools to help sixth formers with their university applications. I'm looking forward to seeing how this project is getting on, but fundamentally, all the time, making sure that every young person realises that every door is open to them. Opportunities are not barred from them, and they have the very best choices in life. The North East Apprenticeship Ambassador Network is a prime example of how local employers are coming together to spearhead the drive to deliver more apprenticeships. As you know, we have rejuvenated apprenticeships so that they offer first-class training, which has been driven by employers themselves. Young people will know that when they sign up for one, they're going to get the best possible grounding for a worthwhile career. Many of the projects I've mentioned are going to depend on word of mouth before they become really part of the educational fabric. We need people to be vocal about them. One of the best ways of getting the message across is good careers advice, and we have been busy in this area. By building strong links with local enterprise partnerships through Opportunity North East, we're enhancing the advice and guidance given to targeted groups of pupils in One Vision schools. This will help them to make the best of their strengths, their interests and their aspirations so that they move on to the right employment or training opportunities after school. And these are just some of our joint efforts to revitalise and drive the opportunities for every child in this region. Ladies and gentlemen, we're all working hard to make sure that Britain can seize the opportunities that lie ahead as we leave the European Union, so we can look forward to a fairer Britain where all young people have a chance to play their part. We all have a massive burning ambition. I don't like it when people talk about north-south divides. And I know the massive potential that rests in every part of this nation. Education, when we talk about levelling up, Education is the best single way that we can achieve that. Through our schools, through our colleges, through our universities, these are the institutions that will far better unlock our potential as a nation than anything else. And while we talk about the importance of investing in infrastructure, there is one key part of our infrastructure that is more important than roads or railways, and that is the skills and talent and ability of our people. And that is why our schools, our colleges and universities are central to the mission, to change the opportunities, to improve the opportunities, to make sure people are able to deliver on their dreams and ambitions for the future of this region and for our country. Thank you.
I appreciate we're slightly running over time now, but I think we've got literally time for a couple of questions, if that's okay. We've got some roving mics in the room. Where are they? Oh.
Morning. Colin Lofthouse, CEO of the Smart Multi-Academy Trust in Newcastle. Thanks for sharing your passion and vision for the children and young people in our region. We really appreciate that. My question is around educational change. There's been a lot of that, particularly over the last 10 to 15 years. New structures, new frameworks, changes to performance measures. I'm wondering whether or not we can look forward to a period of stability to allow for some proper research to be undertaken, for us to be able to assess the impact of those changes and to enable school leaders to be able to appropriately react to them.
Well, every one of you will understand that when you get a new education secretary, and while I've been in the job for 7 months, they obviously want to redraw the curriculum in their own image. I'm pleased to tell you that I am going to resist that temptation. I think that we've had enough changes in terms of curriculum and a lot of a major structural reform. What I want to be doing and focused on is helping you deliver on that and get the absolute best. And I know that you need to have time to bed in these changes. I don't want teachers to be having that constant debate of how the curriculum is going to change in terms of whether it's the teaching of history or physics or something else like that. I want them to be focused on the teaching of physics or history and all those other subjects, sharing their passion for it as against looking at how they're having to sort of recraft something and making sure that they deliver those changes that have been already greatly worked on and sort of outlined, and making sure that children get the benefit for them.
Lady on the second row.
Yes, good morning. I'm Maura Regan. I'm CEO of Common Education Trust, and I'm also a trustee of Schools North East. So it's wonderful to see that you acknowledge the work that's going on in the region, and more importantly, the work of Schools North East, which I think is a powerful force. It's also great that you acknowledge the work of Opportunity North East and the work of the One Vision programme, which I think is showing great impact even in these early days. But that still remains that we have an issue over the image of the North East, and therefore my question is, will the Secretary of State commit to challenging the false narrative around the North-South divide and the unperforming North East profession?
Well, I have to say I find it quite fascinating because as a Yorkshireman by birth and upbringing, I've always seen the North as going from the Humber to the Mersey. I imagine that you probably see the North going maybe from your perspective, Chris, from the Tees to the Loon. But then I was reading the newspapers recently, and I saw the North went from the Wash to the Bristol Channel. So it sort of seems to be shifting around a little bit. You know, I always think about, we're always informed about our own education. And I always think how lucky I was in my education. I went to a very nice comprehensive school in Scarborough, which took a broad range of young people right across from the town. It's sadly no longer in existence, because it closed down a number of years ago, but it gave me an amazing start and some amazing friendships and friends who are still my friends today. And it was about there creating opportunity for every single person. And if I hadn't have had that opportunity that school gave me and then college gave me, I wouldn't be here today. I just want to deliver that for every child. I don't see that there should be a difference between North and South. I just want to help teachers deliver the very best for every single one of their children in that classroom. And I see every single day the absolute passion that teachers have for what they're doing, the commitment they have to the schools that they work in. I mean, my wife was a teacher. She's now a teaching assistant. My brother is a teacher, so I, as you can imagine, get a lot of advice. It's sometimes best, I've discovered, to remain silent as education secretary and to, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you should use them in proportion when dealing with family members involved in the teaching profession. And I just want to deliver. North, south, east or west. It is about getting the very best. And there are different challenges in different regions. It's about maybe different regions, and I know in the northeast, and I know in sort of coastal towns, and I know in some of the cities, whether in the city where I live in Wolverhampton, you can sometimes have challenges in terms of getting recruitment of the right types of the teachers that you need in some of those core subjects. But how do we help in order to make sure we get the very best in every single one of our schools? That is what I'm committed to doing. And as I say, there's a lot of talk about North and South. Let's just unleash the potential. I come to the Northeast and I see so many amazing schools. I see so many people transforming their lives, and I want to put them on a pedestal as much as any school in London or the Southeast. And as someone who comes from the North, as someone who represents a constituency in Wolverhampton and who lives there, I know that there's so many different parts of this country where we haven't seen the type of growth that we want to see in terms of the economy, but actually getting the skills right, making sure we're unlocking that potential. It gives so much back into those communities, and that is what I'm dedicated in terms of doing it. But keep showing me the amazing successes that we have in the Northeast. This is a powerhouse of education, whether it is at primary schools or secondary school levels, or whether it is in our universities or whether it's our colleges. We've got so much to be proud of, whether it's an Institute of Technology being opened here. Let's shout it from the rooftops. Let's not be unapologetic. Let's not think that we should be hiding under a bushel. Let's go out there and sell what we've got, because actually, if you're looking at attracting ever more inward investment, more talent coming into the Northeast, and most importantly, that great talent staying in the Northeast, we've got to be proud of what we have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time for one more?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
The Northeast has the largest proportion of such children. My question to be, how could you, Secretary of State, ensure that policy and funding properly support the Northeast school leaders in addressing this? I mean, beyond the 28 One Vision schools, beyond optically Northeast primary school leader, I think from a primary school perspective, from early years,
Yeah.
SEND, where's the funding and policy going to come to help us with this deprivation?
I'm not saying that I've never been shy in asking for money off the Treasury, and which I think is kind of a prerequisite of what most teachers judge education secretaries as a key component that we've got to have. Obviously, we've been looking at how best to tackle the issues of funding. We got an issue, a £14.4 billion 3-year package, and I wanted it to be 3 years to give you give schools as much confidence and certainty as we can do, and we're the only government department that has had a multi-year package. But also as part of that, recognising the issue of those children with the highest needs and making sure we get more funding and almost £800 million extra going into the special educational needs, but also making sure that we continue with the pupil premium, which is so incredibly important. But I also recognise we need to look at some big issues, especially among some of those communities that are, have the biggest issues in terms of deprivation. One figure that has stuck in my mind so much since getting this job is the word gap for children, as a, the difference between those children from the most deprived backgrounds and those from the most privileged backgrounds, the gap in words that they have when they get to primary school. How do we look at innovative new ways to really start changing this and making a difference? As a Secretary of State, you come into your job and you have 400 demands and sort of asks and everything else. But trying to look at how we tackle some of those issues at the root cause at the earliest possible moment is something that is incredibly close to my heart. Not only because it's something that I want to make sure that those children go on to deliver everything in their life that they want to. It's not only because it just makes incredibly good sense, in terms of, sort of driving educational attainment. But it's just the real sense of duty that we've got to make those opportunities happen for those young people. And looking at innovative new ways of doing that is something that we're working very hard at the department to look at how we can help. And I've always remember as when I was first elected as a Member of Parliament in the West Midlands, and I often used to look at the North East, and I used to think, actually, as the West Midlands, how do we make our voice heard as much as the North East? How do we make people sit up and listen to what the needs of the West Midlands are as much as, so often you as a community of heads have come together to be able to do. But you have an incredibly loud voice at Westminster, and I've already, every single day, I have North East MPs banging on my door saying the types of things that you want and need. And I'm very keen to look at those innovative new ways, how we can actually make improvement, going back to the point and part of your manifesto, making sure that they're evidence-based, not on the whim of whether it's a politician or a teacher, but very much on the evidence that what actually delivers results. Because if we can't unlock that potential for those communities, then actually it's very much a real shame, not just for those children and a real tragedy for those children. It's a tragedy for this country. That is what our mission is going to be about. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
We'll give a warm goodbye to the Secretary of State for Education. Thank you very much. Which leads on to our next keynote of the morning, completing that big picture I was talking about earlier. It's a real pleasure to introduce Leora Cruddas, who's the CEO of the Confederation of School Trusts. Leora's worked with Schools North East for quite a while. She's been up before to talk in front of very large audiences about what's going on a national basis. The organisation that she set up, the Confederation of School Trusts, is the national organisation and sector body for school trusts in England. Leora's advised successive governments and sits on all sorts of DFE advisory bodies. She's the vice chair of the Head Teachers Standards Review Group, and prior to establishing CST, she was director of policy and public relations for the Association of School and College Leaders. Just before leaving ASCL, Leora established the Commission for Ethical Leadership, again was another touch point with Schools North East, on which she served as a commissioner and now sits on the Ethics Committee. She has extensive experience at senior executive level of working with schools and trusts to improve the effectiveness and quality of education. So please give Leora a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today.